Well, hello, I'm Alan Chitty, and this is a video of some extra ideas on Mydric behaviour patterns marketed by JB Magic. Like every effect, it's best if you can personalise it to your own taste, and I'm going to suggest a few ideas for things I do that might prompt you to think of things that would suit you. One of the things I have done with, for example, table magic, where people are all a bit jolly and looking for laughs and sometimes at one another's expense, is to approach the table and say to somebody, looks to me as though you're probably in the top 1%. And then hopefully they say, the top 1% of what? And well, that's up to you then. Well, in terms of charisma or charm or good looks, or if it's a sales convention, salesmanship. And so then do behaviour patterns with them. Would you like to see if you're in the top 1%? And then when I reveal that the top 1% say stop at an odd number and they feel flattered and so on and so on. And there's lots of laughing around the table about the top 1% of what. When I've got a background personally in research at one stage, and so when I first designed it, I showed it to Mark Mason. It was called the Subconscious Choice Research Program, but Mark wisely said, don't have any letters in English or any other language come to that, because people overseas, for example, will not want to buy it. So he came up with those symbols, which I think are quite good on the front of the finished booklet. So my approach was, and still is sometimes, I'm doing some research, would you mind helping me? And then go through the patter as usual. Another approach is to approach people and say, I've got no psychic powers, but I'd like to try and influence you. So it's working the other way around. I'd like to try and influence you. Would you mind trying? Another line I use is, well, human behaviour generally can't be predicted, except in certain narrow situations. Shall I show you what I mean? You might, it occurs to me, you might in a trade situation say, would you like to see if you've got management potential? Are you a good management material? And then go ahead with the test, and then the envelope, you've got a spare envelope in the set, you could make up as many as you want, would say top managers all choose, all say stop at the odd number. So I'm sure you can think of something which will suit your particular situation. The second thing I want to talk about is, you'll have realised now there are two outs. One, if they say stop at the forced pattern, and as you realise, all 16 pages in the book are different, but 8 of them are force patterns, and then that's one situation. And the other situation is where they say stop at a non-force pattern but an odd number, and the latter is slightly more difficult to deal with unless you set it up really well, and it's very easy to do that, so that when you get to the point where they've in half the cases stopped at the odd number, they're not surprised that you're pointing to the number and not the pattern. I don't think in Mark's video demonstration of this he makes enough of that. I've told him that I think that, but he was obviously anxious to do it quite quickly. But in actual fact, as I'm doing it, I say things like, look at the whole spread. I use that expression, it's like a wallpaper book, which in Britain means something because you have wallpaper pattern books in which, look, the pattern's on the front and the number for that pattern is on the back. That's a very familiar situation. I make that point. Mark says they don't have wallpaper pattern books quite like Britain in the USA, and I wouldn't be able to speak for Australia and the rest of Europe, but and so on. But that link between the number and the pattern and the number on the back needs to be established. I need to overdo it, but it needs to be said as you set up the trick. I use phrases like people are affected subconsciously by numbers and patterns. Another thing I say, and again I think Mark makes this point, I say relax. fold your arms, put your hands in your lap. What you're trying to do is to deter people from actually pointing to the pattern, which can be a temptation. Fine if they point to the force pattern, you take it from there, turn over, find the number and what have you. But if they point to the non-force pattern, then you've got to distract them away to the number. It can be done quite easily by saying, well, in actual fact, we find that people initially are attracted by the number. It's the number that seems to make them say stop. And look, here's the pattern. And of course, by that time, you're away and people are so impressed that the pattern matches and what have you. I don't want to make too much of this business of the setup, but you do need to be ready, don't you, for every situation. That's the whole point. And I think that's the way to do it. Just a key phrase or two as you're building it up, which makes it easy then when you get the reveal. I've only ever once been challenged in a lot of performances, and that was where somebody said, no, I meant that pattern. I wasn't looking at the number. And again, I think I hadn't built it up properly on that particular occasion. But if it does develop, then again, that line, well, actually, subconsciously, it's the numbers that affect people. Look what I mean, see what I mean, and get away from it, and there is no problem. Don't want to overdo that, but I'm a bit paranoid. I like to have belt and braces for any situation I meet in any trick, whether it's whatever, somebody else's or my own. Another line which comes up quite often in any trick, not just this trick, you must have had this, something happens, the spectator has said stop, or whatever it is, picked a certain card, and somebody says, well, I wouldn't have picked that one. And I'm sure you found lines for that because it happens. But one of my lines for that is, yes, but somebody who's actually in the spotlight, who's been picked, who's perhaps a bit stressed, it's their response that we're interested in. And look, they stop there. That's what happens in practice every time. So again, just being ready for those things is quite helpful, and I'm sure you'll find bigger and better ones. And I'd love to know, let me know, any thoughts you have. There's a bit of a debate on Magic Cafe at the moment, for example, and it's really great to have some feedback, so long as it's good. But I guess we've got to put up with all sorts of feedback in the learning process. One other thing to mention, if you're interested in these sorts of things, it is actually the combination of two classic effects. One of which Mark mentions on the video, that's 5-star prediction. I think that's a lovely trick by Al Koran, very simple. One of these things, again, where if you're not careful as a magician, you've seen it so often, you say, oh, everybody, the public will spot that. People don't. They don't know what's coming. They don't know what to expect. And so people, well, anyway, have a look at 5-star prediction if you're interested. And the other important thing is the 4-way prediction, the 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, the way you can pull the card out of the envelope. That's been used once or twice, but I first saw it on Osterlin's, one of Osterlin's Easy to Master Mental Miracles DVDs, on an effect called tic-tac-toe. In Britain we call it noughts and crosses, which is a simple game, and he pulls out a solution to a noughts and crosses puzzle, which he can pull out in any direction depending on what's developed in the trick before it. But he says that it's originally accredited to Martin Gardner and Johnny Thompson, and so it goes back a while, as indeed most magic effects do, don't they, that we're doing, dressed up in new clothing sometimes. Well, that's it. There must be other things to be said, and as I said before, thanks for buying it, and let us know if you've got some good ideas, and I'll share them via my website. Thanks again.